Western media is flooding your feeds with Iran protest coverage, framing it as a democratic revolution. But it's less about justice and human rights, more about oil and a regime change playbook we have seen in Iraq, Libya, and Ukraine. Today we are breaking down how sanctions create the crisis. Then intervention is solved as the solution. Let's get into it.
Iran is struggling with crushing inflation. Economic hardship for ordinary people in the Islamic Republic under the rule of the Ayatollahs is nothing new. The latest wave of unrest began at the Bazaar in late December 2025. Traders took to the streets in protest.
More than 500 people have been killed since protests erupted, including at least 490 demonstrators and 48 security personnel.
2 or 3 layers of bodies there were there. And I saw small bags, and I realized that the children, there were many children between the dead bodies.
Soon it became violent and deadly. The US government wants to present the Iranian protests almost as a new counter-revolution, but things are a little bit more complicated. Economic hardship in Iran came as little surprise. Iran has been under US sanctions for nearly half a century, but after Washington withdrew from the nuclear deal in 2018, Tehran faced severe obstacles in exporting its oil, once the country's main source of income. Against this backdrop, the Iranian Rial began to collapse. Annual inflation rose to around 40%, while food prices soared by as much as 70%. Protests and demonstrations in December and January are considered by Western media the largest Iran has seen in recent years.
Here is something to consider. News sources in the West now linked these demonstrations to those of 1979, suggesting the fall of leadership was bound to happen. Yet the parallel didn't emerge by accident. It serves a purpose. Evidence actually points another way. So what follows reveals how this version was built, not found.
They are even being compared with 1979 events when the Shah's regime was overthrown during the Islamic Revolution. Today, what began as peaceful demands quickly escalated into clashes with police and attempts to seize government buildings. Acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, Iranian authorities sought to diffuse public anger through cash payments and the resignation of the central bank governor. In 1979, young people, especially students, were the main driving force behind the protests, but the parallels are misleading. Mass protests in Iran have occurred with notable regularity. In 2018, Iranians took to the streets over economic hardship. In 2021, demonstrations erupted over water shortages. In 2022, protests followed public outrage over the death of a woman detained by police for allegedly violating Islamic dress code rules.
I was stopped in Iran many times by the regime, telling me what to do, like how to dress. So they're trying to control our choices.
The structural causes remain largely unchanged: social inequality, corruption, ineffective governance, young frustration, and limited economic prospects. Yet the government led by Ali Khamenei has endured, managing each time either to suppress the unrest or to reach temporary compromises. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian even recognized the protests and said that he is open for peaceful negotiation.
Here we go. This is the part CNN and the BBC will never show you. When unrest hits nations that ignore US demands. Protests flare in Iran, Syria, Venezuela. Then human rights become urgent, pushed hard by diplomats in Washington. Yet similar scenes in France pass without mention. Civilian strikes by Israeli forces draw little notice. Heavy-handed moves in the UK go unchallenged. Clear enough if you watch long enough.
This is where the role of the West warrants closer scrutiny. The United States has long been at the forefront of Western efforts to undermine Iran's theocratic system. The son of the deposed Shah, now living in exile in the US, attempted to position himself as a leader of the protest movement. Media reports claim that some demonstrators even began calling for the restoration of the Iranian monarchy.
Ali Khamenei and his thugs have committed mass crimes against the Iranian people and against all of humanity. And just like those other tyrannies, the Islamic Republic will fall. Not if, but when.
We are the new generation and we're not happy. We don't want them anymore. We want our king. We want King Reza Pahlavi. Come back to Iran and make Iran great again.
Still, millions of Iranians continue to support the current government, and even when they take part in protests, many are not calling for the overthrow of Ali Khamenei. They want the authorities to hear them. For millions of people, the existing system of power remains legitimate, and the armed forces are loyal, not unlike in 1979. Even many Iranian opposition figures oppose violent regime change and urge both citizens and the authorities to pursue a gradual, evolutionary path for Iran's development. Nevertheless, bloodshed could not be avoided. During violent clashes with police, Western media claim that thousands were killed. The true number of casualties remains unknown. Iran's prosecutor general stated that anyone participating in unrest is considered an enemy of God. Virtually every protest in Iran immediately draws the attention of Western politicians. Together with radical pro-Western Iranian opposition groups, the United States, Israel, and the European Union appear interested in the collapse of the Iranian state. Russia and China have condemned Western interference in Iran's internal affairs. So why does the West harbor such hostility toward Iran's current leadership? The answer, many argue, is simple: oil. Iran ranks third in the world in proven oil reserves, behind Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. And the region has been on the radar of Western oil prospectors since the beginning of the 20th century. This is where Western media hypocrisy becomes especially apparent.
Welcome back. Iran is in a near total internet blackout amid widespread anti-government protests.
Iranians have been telling the BBC about the impact of the regime's brutal crackdown on anti-government protests. One man described treating his own gunshot wounds because he was too afraid to seek medical help.
While the United States, Europe, and Israel face serious challenges of their own: illegal immigration, rising crime, skyrocketing housing costs in major cities like New York, alleged human rights violations by the Israeli military, and mass protests in Paris and London, Western mainstream politicians rush to attack Iran, just as they do any country that refuses to follow their lead.
Is the world on the brink of a devastating war? A war that could rip apart West Asia and drag the entire world with it. Because the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is talking about erasing Iran from the map.
The West, critics say, shows little concern for the fate of ordinary Iranians. Behind lofty rhetoric about fighting a bloody regime and Islamic fundamentalism lies a far simpler interest for American politicians and business elites: Iranian oil. They are ready to extract it to the last drop. Meanwhile, Israel's leadership seeks to neutralize its main regional rival and prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Yet the 12-day war and strikes against Iran demonstrated that the country does not pose an unambiguous existential threat to Israel. The playbook is stoking unrest in Iran, critics argue, has long been tested by Western intelligence agencies. First comes riding the wave of public dissatisfaction and sowing doubt, then follows the narrative that only bloodshed can deliver a bright future and democracy, and finally come the self-proclaimed liberators to take control of everything.
This pattern keeps showing up. clear on paper played out again and again. When sanctions bite, systems start falling, anger grows, dissent gets money, media gets shaped. Soon after comes invasion or handpicked leaders. Think Iraq, then Syria, after that Venezuela. Today it's Iran facing the same path. What remains unclear: will Iran survive as a sovereign country, or are we seeing yet another government torn down under the banner of liberty? Quick note: YouTube demonetized this video. If you are finding value here, 3 ways to support: super thanks below, buy me a coffee in the description, or Substack for the full analysis. That's how we stay independent. Let's finish this.
The Ayatollah's government can be criticized for many shortcomings, like any government in any country, but Iran's situation once again highlights what many see as the failure of international law. Behind the rhetoric of Washington, Geneva, and Brussels about human rights, critics argue lies the oldest rule of all, the rule of force, to come and take. By any means necessary. Iranian authorities claim that Western countries have sent numerous agents to incite unrest and hatred inside the country. Look at the facts of Iraq, Ukraine, Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, and Venezuela. Look at Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The West was helping. The reasons were different in each case, but the Uncle Sam signature, critics say, remains the same. It appears that the West does not know how to be a genuine partner, only how to pretend and how to dominate countries rich in oil and other resources.
And now President Trump is promising help is coming.
Keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible.
What awaits Iran? Maybe a new war or another attempt by foreign powers to subjugate an independent state. Who knows? And Ayatollah? Well, he's old, but he's not the first one. The fate of Iran is murky right now, but what is clear is that every country has the right to deal with its own problems without foreign help.
Truth is, Iran faces serious issues at home. Graft runs deep, leaders bungle basic tasks, people have fair reasons to protest. Still, outside powers stepping in isn't the answer. Sovereignty means a country handles its messes alone. No US airstrikes, no economic blockades imposed from afar. Helping Iranians would start with ending penalties that choke daily life. Yet clearly, relief isn't the goal here. Maybe Trump strikes hard, could just be loud talk instead. Share what you think down there. Look at the links underneath for more. I appreciate you staying through the end. Thanks for watching.